Hello and welcome to Lone Star Silver Screen, a podcast about everything that exists at the intersection of Texas and the movies. I'm your host, Austin Zook, and today I am joined by a good friend of mine, Mr. Zach David. Zach, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you. Zach, for those of you who don't know him, is a lover of art, a connoisseur of entertainment, and a seller of beer. I'm very lucky to have him on the show today. And Zach, why don't you tell the people what we are here to talk about?
Well, we're here to talk about Hell or High Water.
Okay, Hell or High Water, which came out in 2016. It was directed by David Mackenzie, a fantastic director. Taylor Sheridan wrote it. This was kind of the, let's call it the introduction to what would end up becoming the Taylor Sheridan universe. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, Sicario came out, I think, the year before, which kind of introduced people to his writing. And then when this came out, I mean, people were like, okay, well, he's got something going on.
I think that is absolutely correct. So Sicario hits in 2015. That's a Denis Villeneuve movie. And I think the difference between this and Sicario is I think Sicario has a lot more of the Denis Villeneuve flair to it. And so I think that movie is incredibly well written. I love that film, but I think that's a really perfect mesh of director and writer both bringing their talents to bear. And I think David Mackenzie is a fantastic filmmaker. But in my opinion, I think that this is more of a Taylor Sheridan joint than a David Mackenzie joint. Are you familiar with any of Mackenzie's other films?
I really wasn't that familiar with him. I kind of did a little bit of research on him and saw some stuff, but I haven't really dived into him that much. I know he has another movie coming out next year with ATJ. I think they've already like finished it and everything. It's already been viewed, but it just hasn't been released.
You know,
yet.
he had one that came out earlier this year called Relay.
Okay.
It stars Riz Ahmed, and that is just like it's a straight down the line thriller about a guy who basically he works outside the law kind of to get things done, but he uses like a deaf person's answering support service so deaf people can make phone calls. And he uses that to communicate with his clients so nobody can trace it back to them. And that's like the whole conceit of the film. Really good, really well made. I think David Mackenzie is a phenomenal director. You know, his follow-up to Hell or High Water was a 2018 film called Outlaw King.
Okay, yeah, the Netflix one, right?
Absolutely. And it also starred Chris Pine. So, you know, they reteamed after Hell or High Water. But let's take a step back. For anyone who is not familiar with Hell or High Water, I know you just rewatched it. How would you describe this movie to somebody?
Yeah, I'm born and raised in Texas, not from West Texas, but I'm familiar, obviously, with all of Texas, and I think this film tries to capture that modern Western style, and I think it definitely shows kind of some blight that's happening in smaller towns that are just getting kind of passed by as time goes on and kind of consumed by time itself, I guess. You know, you have these small towns that are just kind of dying, and people are doing whatever they can to survive, basically. So I think it really dives into that pretty well and kind of shows, you know, what's going on out there.
So as far as the cast goes, we've got Chris Pine and Ben Foster playing a pair of brothers. And the basic setup of the movie is they are conducting these bank robberies in these small West Texas towns, and they've got everything figured out. So they basically know, you know, when they need to get in, when they need to get out, and how to get away with the money. And they're taking very specific amounts. You know, they have a goal in mind. And then you have Jeff Bridges and Gil Birmingham as Texas Rangers who are trying to track them down. And it's this really incredibly tense and suspenseful cat and mouse game as these Texas Rangers hunt down these pair of brothers. And Ben Foster is a little more wild. He's a little more reckless, a little harder to predict. Chris Pine is the one who is kind of not necessarily calling the shots, but he's the one who's like, hey, we have a job to do. Let's do the job.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Pine, I mean, he's the mastermind basically behind it, his character Toby. And I love how the movie just starts and you as the audience, like you have to play catch up. And I think it's just a great way to just start the action. And I mean, you really don't know the motivation behind why they're robbing these banks until halfway through the movie. It's not even revealed to you. So I think just the way that it starts and continues on, and you're like, what's going on here? But then, you finally are explained why they have that motivation to rob these banks. And it's like you didn't need the explanation before. You're just put into the action right away. And so I love how they do that in this.
Well, I think that's one of the master strokes of the film is that you can tell pretty early on that like Chris Pine's character is not in this for the kicks.
Yeah.
Like he's like, no, this is like kind of a job for him. He's like, we are trying to accomplish something. This is a way to accomplish it. We are not here to have fun and do things that are off script. And then, of course, like we said, we've got Ben Foster kind of pulling him in the other direction. What about the other side of that dynamic with Jeff Bridges and Gil Birmingham trying to track them down? I mean, do you enjoy their performances in this?
Yeah, I mean the performances in this are great. I mean, Jeff Bridges, I think he was nominated for an Oscar for this, rightfully so. He did a great job. He lost out to Mahershala in Moonlight, so that was a hard year for them to go to the Oscars because they had a lot of stuff going on to compete against in that. But Jeff Bridges did a great job. Bill did a great job. They have kind of they respect each other. I'm not Jeff Bridges' character is a little bit racist. And I think that was written as kind of a show of the times, like he's old school, he doesn't necessarily mean harm, but he's racist. So he's his partner's kind of doing the best he can with that, and I think they have some good banter back and forth. No, I mean it's all around the performances in this movie are just they're top notch. Yeah, it's like a master class in acting, honestly.
Well, I want to go back for a second to that Jeff Bridges character being racist point you made, because that is very much text, right? And I
Yeah,
think this is something that happens again and again throughout the broader Taylor Sheridan universe, which we are now very accustomed to. Uh, which you have these characters who are, let's say, very good at their job and they are not worried about being politically correct, right? Like
yeah,
they'll make off color jokes, they'll be kind of sexist or racist, but the intent is for the audience to kind of brush it off because like you said, they're old school, they're good old boys and they mean well. They don't mean anything by it. It's just they're a product of their time. Now, in this film, I think it works pretty well. And I think part of that is because this is really the first time we are exposed to that dynamic in Taylor Sheridan's writing. I don't think Sicario has just a whole lot of that.
yeah.
But as things have gone on and we've moved on from Hell or High Water to things like Landman or Tulsa King, I mean,
Wind River also.
do you think that's become more or less effective over time?
If I'm being honest, I think his writing has become less effective.
Okay.
As a whole, to come out of the gate with Sicario, Hell or High Water, Wind River as your first three features that you write, and it's hard to go back, like to get back on top from that. I think as he progressed and started writing more like television, it got a little played out. And I haven't watched all of his shows, but I've seen a few, and they're definitely a style of their own. So
Yeah.
I think Taylor Sheridan has his fans, and they religiously watch all of his shows. And I think he has a lot of criticisms that are pretty valid when it comes to some of his writing. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to argue with the success that he's had. I mean, he just penned a deal with NBC for $1 billion. So yeah, I mean, I think it's played out, but a lot of people don't. So
I think he's incredibly successful. I think what he has tapped into is kind of this masculine soap opera, this,
mhm.
this soap opera-y style of writing. And he's been able to channel that, like you said, into basically making himself $1 billion man. And I think there was a real gap in the market for that, and I think people were really ready for it. And I actually think Hell or High Water is kind of an interesting inflection point as a film for that because it comes out in 2016, which is the year Donald Trump was first elected president of the United States of America. And
Yeah,
I think that's really a reaction to kind of this forgotten man mentality that a lot of Americans felt at that time. They felt disenfranchised, they felt left behind. by a lot of the policies of the previous era. So Donald Trump capitalizes on their rage and he becomes president. And then we saw him do it again, of course, in 2024. Would you say that this and Sicario are Taylor Sheridan's best work? I mean, do you think he's done anything that equals this in the years since?
I really don't. I mean, like I said, like this Sicario and Wind River, I love all three of those movies, and I think they're really well written. Then I haven't seen anything from him that really hits me, like makes me think after it's over. Like I've watched Linus, I've watched Landman, I've watched some Yellowstone. That stuff is kind of like you said, bro soap opera-y. Like you watch it and afterwards you're like, okay, well, that was entertainment. With these three films, Hell or High Water especially, I think that's my favorite of the three. You're left thinking about the movie afterwards. So whenever you have some type of art that you are still thinking about after you consume that art, I think that is worth a little bit more merit than other pieces of media that you just consume and forget about.
I could not agree more. And I certainly think, because I love Sicario, Hell or High Water, and Wind River, so just like you. And I think, I don't know if Hell or High Water is my favorite over Sicario as a film, but it's certainly, in my opinion, the most watchable of the three. Like I could put that on and
Yeah.
I will have a great time no matter what. Now, do you know what Taylor Sheridan has on the docket as far as films coming up?
So, I looked. He has so many shows coming out. I wrote them down. He is, as far as shows go, he's 1923, 1944, 1983, Four Sixes. These are all Yellowstone spinoffs, by the way. So
Yeah.
Yellowstone has become just insane. The Madison, another Yellowstone spinoff. I think a couple of the main characters in Yellowstone are going to have another spinoff. Mayor of Kingstown, Landman, Lioness, Tulsa King. And then he bought the rights to Empire of the Summer Moon, which is a story about Quanah Parker, leader of the Comanches in the late 1800s. I'm not sure if that's going to be made into a show or a movie. I'm not even sure they started production, but I mean, he's definitely got a lot going on. He's a busy man.
Well, as far as films go, in addition to all of his television work that you already cited, he's got a film coming up that he wrote called Fast, F-A-S-T. And
Okay.
then he is also writing and producing the Call of Duty movie. Are you a
I
Call
saw
of
that on
Duty
his
man?
credit. I am a Call of Duty man. I saw that on his credit. I wasn't sure if it was what stage of production that was in.
I would guess it's pretty early on.
Yeah. But like you said, I think with his style, that will fit really well with the Call of Duty fan base.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a match made in heaven. Is that the kind of thing you want him doing more of? Like these big budget studio blockbusters kind of leaning into what he does well?
So let me like take a step back real quick. So as far as like his shows go, they are catered to a certain crowd, but some of his stuff I do actually like The Lioness. I watched both seasons of that show and I really enjoyed it. And, going back to what you said about how things are getting politicized one way or the other, and you have this forgotten about crowd who like Trump and him like cater to. Uh, I don't think you necessarily have to politicize everything. Like I enjoy Lioness, and I mean, my political ideologies, so I don't think in order to consume a certain type of art form, you have to lean one way or the other. I mean, there are certain things that obviously are one way or the other, but I do enjoy some of his stuff that is that way. It's like very, I even hate using this term, but like alpha, male. Like even though the main character Linus is Zoe Saldana, a female, um, it's very like testosterone driven. A lot of his writing, and he does get a lot of criticisms for the way he writes female characters. Rightfully so. I don't think that he necessarily writes female characters the best. But then on the flip side, you have the first three features that he wrote, which are not really the same as all of this television that he's written. I think like Sicario, Hell or High Water, Wind River, they all have very simple plots, like at their core. And he really writes them like character-driven plots, really. And he really builds those characters, has a lot of character intention with his characters, rather. So I think that he does that really well. and I think he should go back to that. But on the flip side, part of me does want to see what he can do with a Call of Duty movie. If it's anything like The Lioness, which is just pure action and big set pieces and things like that, then I'm all for it.
So speaking of set pieces, getting back to Hell or High Water, I this is a film that it's got some really epic moments in it, but there aren't. I mean, like most of the shootouts and stuff, it's kind of like one or two guys, one after another. You do have that big scene towards the end where Ben Foster's character is sniping at the sheriffs. But this feels like something a little more intimate than what you might expect from what Taylor Sheridan does later, which are it's a little bigger, a little brassier. What do you think about the action sequences in this film? I mean, is that effective? Did that get you? Are you drawn in?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, for a film that really only has a couple shootouts and not even that long of shootouts, he really does a great job of building the tension and the action to that point. And I mean, you see this also with Sicario. I mean, one of the tensest scenes in film history is the bridge scene or the entry scene for Sicario, where they're coming back into the U.S. I think he builds that tension really well in Hell or High Water as well. I mean, before the credits even roll, or before the opening credits even start, they've already robbed two banks. So you have that punch in the face really quick, and then it kind of a slow burn up until the shootout with Ben Foster's character. So I think he was very effective in how he wrote that, and then David Mackenzie obviously and how he directed that as well, and into bringing the audience into kind of a lull, but with like a little bit of tension, like, well, they robbed these banks, like what's going to happen now? And then you find out the motivation behind it, and then the shootout, and then I mean, it's just a well-written story. I mean, I don't know, it's very like simple story, and it's just well written.
Well, we're saying it's simple, and it is. Like it's two brothers are robbing banks, two cops are trying to stop them. Like that's it in a nutshell. But they do such a good job drawing out the relationships between these characters. And then what's really great is that, as the story progresses towards the end, you kind of have the dynamic shift a little bit. People have died, and suddenly there's a relationship that's developed between Jeff Bridges and Chris Pine's character over the course of the story that's adversarial, but it's kind of like that John Mulaney bit where it's like the relationship between Robert De Niro and Al Pacino in Heat, where it's like we're on opposite sides of the law, but like, you do what you do, I do what I do, and I kind of respect you a little bit. And I think that's really interesting too, how these new relationships develop between these people on opposite sides of the law.
Yeah, and I mean, you can tell from the beginning that Toby, which is Chris Pine's character, is not really comfortable with everything that he's having to do. I mean, you can see like his eyes through the ski mask when they're robbing that first bank that, oh man, my brother's crazy. He's probably going to kill some people, but we have to do this. So, and I guess I was trying to hold it off, but the motivation behind it you find in the middle of the movie is basically their mother has died and they have a reverse mortgage. The bank was basically predatory towards her, and she had a reverse mortgage on from the bank on the property, and they were about to foreclose, but they also found oil on the property. So the brothers need to raise a certain amount of capital to buy back the land from the bank before it's foreclosed on and they lose it. So, I mean, once you find that out, it makes sense. And then when you find out that the bank they're stealing from is the bank that's foreclosing on their house, it makes even more sense. So you understand the motivation at that point. But Toby, Chris Pine's character, he still seems to have like some morals and some qualms about how everything is happening. And so when that comes to a head at the end of the movie with him and Jeff Bridges' character, it seems like Toby's fine with whatever happens to me. Like, I'll accept the consequences, sort of. I don't know. What do you think about like that final showdown? Because obviously they're alluding to something happening that's going to happen off screen after the movie's over. He's like, hey, I rented a house in town, maybe I'll give you that piece you want.
I think it's like there's no celebration in the ending for Chris Pine. It's like, going back to what we were talking about earlier, this was kind of like a job for him. He had a goal, he accomplished that goal, and now he's like, you know what, if I have to pay the piper, then so be it. I'm okay with that. But I think that ending is I think it could be read as anticlimactic because you don't actually see them have that final shootout. Like you're
Yeah.
saying, it's just kind of alluded to, but it's so effective and it's such a great character moment and a really incredible quiet moment to end the film on.
Yeah, and I guess I should go back and say, I mean, he did all this for his kids, basically. So he left the ranch to his kids, put it in a trust, and the best thing about it was how the lawyer told him, if you want them to actually trust you, put the trust or put the bank in charge of the trust that you're robbing from, which is hilarious. And it's just,
I mean, it's such a, again, going back to it, like on its surface, this is a very simple plot. It's a very simple idea, but there are all these little twists that he adds in
mhm.
that really make it something incredible and elevate it. And that's one of the big ones is like, a character in the film says, why would people rob banks? The days of robbing banks and living long enough to spend the money are long over, right? And they found a way to rob banks and then have the bank not want them to get caught for robbing
Yeah.
them, which is, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, the end of the movie where because Jeff Bridges' character is kind of forced to retire. So at the end of the movie, I mean, he's just a civilian at that point. And then when he's talking to the lead investigator, like, no, we dismissed the brother, and yeah, the bank is giving us a harder time than any of the other witnesses because they don't want us to touch the oil money.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you a very important question raised by this film. Are you ready?
Yes,
Is Mr. Pibb only for assholes?
yes, of course.
Okay,
Actually, I
okay.
wrote that down too. So not only that, but I think the dialogue of Tanner's character, which is Ben Foster, it's so funny. The things he says are just so random and funny. Like you wouldn't expect the most violent character in the movie to provide the comedic relief, but
Well, and he's the dialogue just across the board in this film is incredible. I mean, I completely agree. Like his dialogue is really funny. He's a very funny character. He's got like this real swagger to him. So he's like objectively a piece of shit, but also he's so charming and so winning. And you're like, yeah, I could see people being kind of taken with his charisma when he comes storming into a room. It's like, yeah, I kind of want to see what this guy's gonna do next.
I mean, I feel like we all probably know a person or two who are like this, who
Absolutely.
may not be the brightest tool in the shed, but like you said, have this charisma and just likability behind them, no matter how big of a piece of shit they are.
I mean, I think one of the lines that really stuck with me the first time I saw the film was whenever he is kind of squaring off with this Native American guy, and the guy says, I'm a Comanche. Do you know what that means? It means enemy to everyone. And Ben Foster, without missing a beat, goes, do you know what that makes me? A Comanche.
Yeah.
And I just like, there are like these really great moments of dialogue. And I think that is Taylor Sheridan at his absolute best, is putting that on screen, putting those words in these incredible actors' mouths. And then that's David Mackenzie giving them the space to give us a great performance and really make that dialogue sing.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote that one down too, but there are a few other things, and I can't go through this episode without saying some other quotes that he has because they're just too funny.
Please give them to.
So the first bank that they rob, they're talking to the teller, and she was saying how she doesn't have access to it. The manager's coming in, and then she said, "Y'all better leave. All you boys are guilty of right now is being stupid." And then like a few seconds later, Ben Foster's character's like, "You're stupid." It's like, okay. So this guy is a child, basically. What else? Oh, yeah. Chris Pine's telling him, hey, I need you sober. Don't get drunk. He's like, who the hell gets drunk off beer?
I love that
Hilarious.
line.
Of course, the only assholes drink Mr. Pibb. That's hilarious. Chris Pine says it's too big or something. And then he says, that's what she said. So this is not a serious person
No,
most of the time.
he's doing serious things.
Yeah, I mean that one of the best parts of the film is when all of those cowboys are chasing them down the highway and they just get up ahead of them a little bit and they just pulls over the side of the road and he's like, just a second, I need to get out. And then he just gets out that assault rifle and just starts hip firing it into all the trucks following him. So they all turn around.
I mean, that is, again, that's a really cool moment. That's like one of the most explosive moments in the film is him doing that. And
Yeah.
it's funny and it's exciting. And I think that, again, that's really what this movie does at its best, is it brings all of these things together And this film was shot in New Mexico,
Hmm.
but it really does capture that feeling of being in West Texas. I've spent a lot of time driving through the wilds of West Texas, visiting these small towns, visiting pharmacies there because that's my day job. And this feels very, very, very true to what that experience is like. And one of the great bit players in this film is when they go and they sit down to have lunch, the cops, and the waitress comes by and she's like, "What are you not going to have?" And she knows exactly what everyone orders, so she's asking them which version of it they want. And like you can go in these small Texas towns and you can eat at a diner or something, and you will have a waitress who has worked there for 50 years. And they act so surly, but like the food's incredible, which is why you go there. But I just like those character moments, even in the side parts, those are so funny and so accurate to what that experience can be like at its best.
Yeah, and like you said, the side characters in this film, I mean, you have the waitress, and both waitresses actually, the waitress from the other place that they go to eat lunch, just the old timers who are there watching the bank get robbed. Yeah, here long enough to see the bank get robbed. It's been robbing me for 30 years.
Yeah.
And so you have these like side characters who just have so much character in just the few lines that they have. And again, that shows, kind of the how Taylor Sheridan wrote this and then how David Mackenzie was able to get these guys to pull off those performances in just a few seconds. But yeah, I mean, it shows a lot of character for where they are. And I was actually going to ask you, so you brought up that it was filmed in New Mexico, which I did read. Do you think now, because at a previous episode you talked about the film incentives that are set to take place, do you think now, if this movie were to be made like this year or next year, once those incentives go into play, it would actually be filmed in Texas now?
That's a great question. And I honestly think it would.
Yeah.
I think those film incentives that they created, based on my understanding of them, they're very extensive. And I know some people have had pushback against those because they aren't going to help like a small $50,000 independent film. But this movie was made for a little over $10 million. And I think that's exactly the size of film that could really take advantage of those and get something out of them. So if this were made today, I would assume it would be made in the actual towns of West Texas. They would film it in Marfa and Alpine and all of those places kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. No, I mean that's awesome. I mean, listening to your episode the other day, it's cool to see that Texas is taking that step and we're getting more attracting those bigger names. I mean, Taylor Sheridan, one of them. I mean, his new production studio, literally behind my neighborhood in
Well, and I,
Alliance.
I think that Taylor Sheridan, and I'm glad you brought this up because I mentioned this on that episode, and Taylor Sheridan is one of the people who, one of the reasons why people are critiquing these new film incentives because they're saying this isn't actually a film incentive. This is a Taylor Sheridan incentive. They want to make Taylor Sheridan happy and they want to make sure he gets all the money he needs because he's bringing all of this production to Texas. And on that episode, I kind of alluded to that. And Ian, who was a phenomenal guest and he knows this stuff so well, he said that, in his opinion, that wasn't entirely accurate. But I do think that that is a valid concern that filmmakers have is that, is there going to be enough of this left over for the people who are not the Taylor Sheridans or are not making The Chosen, the TV show about the life of Jesus,
Yeah.
are these maybe not tiny productions, but smaller productions? Will there be enough of these left over to benefit a $500,000 production or a $2 million production? And I think that's something that we're really going to have to watch and see over the next couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know enough information to speak on stuff like that, but I will say, like, with those new production houses being built over here, there's a lot going on. I mean,
Yeah.
with my day job, I mean, I'm traveling around Fort Worth pretty frequently to a lot of different parts of Fort Worth, and you're constantly running into this street is closed, so they're filming here, they're filming here. So I mean, that's good. I think, I mean, that's good for the community. That's good for Texas, good for Fort Worth. It's bringing in a lot of talent. It's bringing in a lot of money. I think it's giving a lot of people here jobs as well. Now, I don't know. I don't want to speak on like long-term ramifications or how that will affect the smaller players because I just don't know that info. But I will say from what I see, it seems like it's a good thing.
I think there are a lot of really good things that happen as a result of this. You know, I would say I'm kind of in the middle where I'm like, I see both sides and I see the people who are excited about it and I see the value and I also see the concerns. So I'm excited to see where this goes. I think this is a really awesome moment in Texas film because, like you're saying, there's a lot happening here right now. And a lot of that, sure, is driven by Taylor Sheridan, but there's some really cool stuff that isn't driven by him. And that's something that I want this podcast to explore as well. You know, I'm going to really focus in 2026 on talking to some independent filmmakers who live here and make their films here and have done really great work. But getting back to Hell or High Water, we're talking about the quotes, like and you know, incredible quotes throughout this film. Are there any sequences or moments in the film that we haven't talked about yet that really jumped out to you that kind of highlight what is so great about this film?
Man, what? So, yes, I just was just reminded of another scene. The scene where they go to stop at the gas station, the convenience store, it kind of sticks out to me because you have Ben Foster's character who's just kind of chilling there, just head back, sunglasses on, and then Chris Pine's character goes inside to get him a not Dr. Pepper. But then obviously these young kids pull up in their souped up car and they start revving it, and they think that Ben Foster's looking at him even though he's just literally minding his own business, and they start talking to him. He pulls out a gun and Ben Foster's like, you'd think they're a 10 of me, something like that, to antagonize him. And
Yeah.
then he starts to get out of the car as soon as Chris Pine's character walks out, and then Toby, Chris Pine's character, just beats the crap out of him.
Yeah.
And so you kind of see that like sudden shock of violence from his character that we haven't seen up until this point. Because up until this point, you know, Ben Foster's been the one who's been doling out all the punishment and doing the major lifting of the bank robbery. So you kind of see like, yeah, Chris Pine's character is capable of doing this stuff too. He's going to do whatever he needs to do to make sure that this happens, that they go through with this plan and everything.
So something I want to ask you about, and it was on my mind earlier when I was prepping for this episode. I love heist films, right? And so I love films about bank robberies, and I don't care if it's like this one where it's a bunch of small bank robberies or it's like one big bank robbery that they're building to. That's one of my favorite things that can happen in a film. And something I was thinking a lot about is how bank robbery is often portrayed by the bank robbers in these films as kind of it's a victimless crime, right? Like you'll hear it again and again whenever people go into banks and films to rob them. They'll say, like, if there are people in there, they'll be like, we're not stealing your money. We're stealing the bank's money. Bank's money's insured. You guys are fine. Nobody
Yeah,
try to be a hero.
the common
And
trope.
you mentioned earlier the guy who is talking to the officers and he says, well, I've been sitting here long enough to see a bank get robbed that's been robbing me my whole life. And I think this is the first movie I've ever seen where you had people witness the robbery who were kind of on the side of the bank robbers and were just like, you know, yeah, like they robbed that bank, but I don't really care that much. Have you ever seen that before in a film?
Man, I don't.
I just thought that was interesting, and I love that because I mean, no one likes banks, and I feel like that's something the movie really like
Well,
taps into.
yeah, and I think like you can argue that Ben Foster is like the bad guy in this, but I mean, the bank is kind of the bad guy in this movie because during the beginning of the film, also like when they're driving around, you see all these for sale signs, for lease signs, like closed signs, and you know, it's kind of alluded to that these banks have kind of destroyed these communities and just kind of hurt all of these people financially, and so that's why no one really cares. Like the waitress, like, no, that's my money. I need to pay for rent for my daughter. You're not taking my tips. So she's not helpful. Those guys aren't helpful. I mean, you have these big banks who move into these small communities and they just kind of have their way with people. So, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be on the bank side either.
Something else I wanted to call out was there is kind of a tie back to classic Hollywood here. You know, Jeff Bridges, when he was young, he starred in this classic film called The Last Picture Show. Have you ever seen it before?
When was it made?
71.
No, definitely not.
It's very good. It's based on a Larry McMurtry novel, and this is very early in Jeff Bridges' career, and he was actually nominated for Best Supporting Actor for it. But that film was shot in Arthur City, which is where Larry McMurtry was from originally. And that is one of the towns where a bank is located in this film that they try to rob. So I thought that was kind of a fun piece of little synchronicity. Now, when we're looking at this movie, this does feel like a film that it's kind of crazy that it got noticed by the Oscars because it does feel a little too gritty to make it through, especially, 10 years ago. This was not the kind of movie that I would expect to see at the Oscars. It's not like this flashy awards play. It feels like something very pure. And I think that's really interesting that even, Academy voters were like, no, there's something here and we need to recognize it.
Yeah, and man, what it was nominated for four, but it unfortunately didn't win any. I think it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay, Supporting Actor, and Editing. The original screenplay lost to Manchester by the Sea, which I mean that's a great film as well.
I've
So
never seen that movie.
you got to watch it. It's a hard watch, but it's a great movie. So you can, yeah, it was contending with some tough films that year. So, and I mean, it was only like you said, 12 million I think was the budget. So it just that alone, it's kind of crazy how well it did.
So we were talking earlier about how great the performances in this are. Are these your favorite performances by Chris Pine and Jeff Bridges, who are really the two leads of the film?
I really like when I watch this movie, I can't help but think of True Grit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Jeff Bridges he's just so good in everything.
Yeah, he is.
Man, was it Crazy Heart? Is that the name of it?
That's what he won the Oscar for.
That's kind of a cop out to say that's my favorite performance of him. But
I've never seen that movie either.
man, it's so good. And just as a musician and having gone to school for music, it connected with me quite a bit. So that I'm so bad at picking favorites. Like
That's
I,
okay.
I
That's
love
okay. No, we're
I
talking
love
for
so
good
many
stuff.
things. You should see like my letterbox and Goodreads are just full of 4 and 5 stars for everything. I just have a hard time. I know what I like and I watch it or read it, and that's, man, I would say True Grit, honestly.
I love True Grit, and I think he's incredible in that. And I think that that's the film he should have won the Oscar for.
Was he nominated that year for it?
Believe he was. I can confirm that. While I pull that up, I was going to ask you, since you mentioned music, the music in this film was done by Nick Cave and Warren Ellis, who are beloved musicians. What do you think of the music in Hell or High Water?
I mean, it just goes with the rest of the film. Like when you're watching a movie and everything just kind of meshes together where you don't even notice you're watching it, that to me is the perfect form of entertainment. So the movie, the music just fits so seamlessly with what's happening that you don't even really notice it, which is what you want. It just works. I mean, yeah.
I completely agree. And he was nominated for Best Actor. He'd been nominated 3 times. He won for Crazy Heart. He was also nominated for Starman, 1985, a John Carpenter film, and for True Grit.
Man, he should have been nominated for Tron. What was the second one? Tron Legacy with
That's so good you can't remember the name.
his CGI face.
Did you
Hey,
see
look,
Tron Ares?
I have not seen that yet. I heard it wasn't good.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. It was one of those things where Mallory, my fiance, for those of you listening, was like leading up to it. She was watching the trailers and she was like, I'd probably go see that. And I was like, this is terrible because my entire relationship is built around me trying to find films I can actually get her to go see. And then that's the one she picked.
To each their own.
Yeah, that's right.
I feel like, I mean, what people on Reddit called Jared Leto the franchise killer.
He really, really is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as we wrap up here, any final thoughts on Hell or High Water that you want to share with the people?
Man, it's just a great film. Like everyone needs to watch it. It's kind of like just a masterclass in just character driven dialogue, in my opinion. Everything's great. The acting's great. Cinematography is great. We didn't even talk about the cinematography, but that was
God, it's
fantastic. And I haven't even heard of the cinematographer before, but apparently him and David Mackenzie, he just does every David Mackenzie movie. So his name is, I got it written down right here.
Giles Nutgens.
Giles. So he's a Scottish too, I think.
He did Enola Holmes on Netflix. Did you see those? The Millie Bobby Brown Sherlock Holmes' little sister movies?
I saw the first one, did not see the second one.
You know
are your
what?
thoughts?
Pretty charming.
I liked the first one. I enjoyed the first one. I just never made it to the second one. I don't watch as many movies as you. I don't think many people do.
Well, I've got to stay on top of the culture for
Of
everything I do
course.
here. I would recommend, if you watch Hell or High Water and you enjoy it, I mentioned Relay, David Mackenzie's 2024 film a little earlier, which is also a thriller. I do recommend seeking that out. I think it's a really solid film. And I think it's one of those movies that it's not nearly as good as Hell or High Water, but few films are. And I think it's actually one that'll play pretty well at home watching it on your couch.
You know what? I just thought of another one while you were telling me about that.
Okay.
Check out Old Henry. Have you seen it?
I've never seen it, but I love, 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 love the idea of it.
No, it's fantastic. My dad loves westerns and he will always tell me about westerns, and most of the time I don't watch them, but I did watch this one and I was really glad I did. It's a fantastic, fantastic movie.
Well, I think Tim Blake Nelson is like one of our great
Yeah.
actors. So to have him as the starring character in a film like that is just that's a match made in heaven for me. It's like a western with one of my favorite people to see on screen.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. I mean, again, that movie is another one where everything about it just meshes so well. The dialogue, cinematography, music, it just looks good. It's entertaining, and yeah.
Okay. Well, Zach, thank you for doing this. If the people listened and they want to follow you and learn more about what it is that you're up to, where can they go to keep up with Zach David?
I'm just a nobody on social media right now, for now, until all of your listeners start following me. No, you can, Zach David, ZD Industries is my Instagram. And I also have a second Instagram called Zach Reviews Things, where I just kind of review whatever I feel like it. So it can be anything, a Funko Pop, a movie, a place, a bottle of whiskey.
What's the most recent thing you reviewed?
I reviewed Ice at the Gaylord Texan.
I thought you meant just the government agency.
No, we're not gonna get into that right now. No, Ice the exhibit at the Gaylord Texan. Have you been
Okay.
before?
I've never been, and it's like legendary, and people always tell me to go, and I've lived here for like a decade, and I have never once gone to it.
Okay. Well, watch my review first before you go.
Okay, I will. And as always, I want to thank everyone for listening. Zach, this was a real pleasure. I can't wait to have you back on. I know that this was kind of the default movie that you and I both really got excited about. If you were to come back, is there another Texas film that you would be excited to talk about?
You know what? Just tell me what it is, and I'll be excited for it.
Okay. No, that's a good way to be. I need all of my guests to take that mentality. I hope anyone listening is taking notes if they ever want to join me on the show. All right, buddy.
Hey,
Well, hey, thanks again for taking time out of your evening to talk to me and do this. This episode's going to publish in 2026, so we are coming to you if you're listening from the past. Zach, have a great night.
thank you. I appreciate it. You too.
And that was my episode with Zach David about Hell or High Water. If you enjoyed yourself, and I certainly hope you did, please remember to rate, review, and follow us wherever it is you get your podcasts. I will be back next week with my good friend Nick Holloway joining me to look back at 2025 and talk about some of our favorite films of the year. It's not going to be Texas specific, but I'm sure Texas will play a role in that. That episode will also function as our season finale before we take a very short break and then come back with season 2, where I'm going to be talking to some independent filmmakers about how they have taken their movies out into the world. Until then, thank you for listening, and as always, I'll see you at the movies and on the dusty trails of Texas.